bushwalk. My name is James Henry, in case you were wondering, and we're going to go on a little voyage of discovery. Well, not so much a voyage, I think that's in a ship. We're going to go on a little walk of discovery, and we're going to look for small things. If we do see any tracks of something bigger, like perhaps the lions, we'll try and track them, or maybe some elephants, we'll try and track them too, but mainly it's going to be focusing on just getting a bit close and personal with the wonders of the wilderness here, and it's really nice to be back out on foot, I must say. Andrew is on camera, as you heard, and you can talk to us in exactly the same way as you're talking to Brent. Questions at wildearth.tv or hashtag SafariLIVE. Andrew just fell over a stick there. I can tell it's going to be a long and difficult walk. Right, the first thing we're going to look at is this beautiful tree, and it's not particularly impressive at the moment, but it's called Combretum calinum, or the variable bush willow, and I think that they're some of the most attractive trees that we get here. They grow into these almost, I'm sure when you were a little child, or many of you when you were little, and some of you who might still be little, you make forts to go and sort of hide yourself in and cosset yourself in when you've either had a fight with your family or you're just playing with a friend. And these trees make the most brilliant forts. This isn't a particularly good example, but I'll try and find one where you can just kind of make yourself a little enclosure in the middle. They're wonderful. They're also very good. The reason this one doesn't look like much of a fort is that the elephants have devoured it, and they've devoured it because it tastes really good compared with a lot of the other trees around here. Right, so that's Combretum calinum, the variable bush willow. So we're walking through this Combretum woodland, and it's pretty open, which is very nice. Oh, look how pretty that is. Lucy, in Indiana, a nice question. Do we let the authorities know that we've just left the vehicle there, you know, so that they don't think that we're up to no good, that it might be a poaching vehicle? There we go, Andrew nearly walked into a tree. It's taking a little bit of a while to get used to this again. Lucy, we don't, because we're not in direct contact with the anti-poaching team at the moment, but the car is branded, so it's branded Juma. And so, I mean, it's unlikely that a poacher will brand their car, and it's also got, I mean, it's got a whole lot of game driving equipment and stuff in it, so they would know exactly who it was from. Thanks, Lucy. Let's just go across to the termite mound here, because there was a wonderful view of the sun coming up, and of course there's not a lot of elevation around here. It's very sort of undulating, gentle topography, and so you don't have to get up very high to get an amazing view. And I had the most wonderful experience 2 days ago when I climbed up a tree to fetch some mistletoe, and the view from there was astonishing. So let's climb up this termite mound. Andrew will probably fall down the back of it, which will be slightly disconcerting, but very amusing for you. Come on, Andrew, see if you can get up here. Oh. Yeah, not a great view of the sun, but a wonderful view out to the west there. Do you want a hand?
I think I'll make it.
You'll make it. Well done.
Maybe not.
Okay. So if we look over that way, you can see the grey cloud. I just love that colour grey, with the beautiful blue above it, and that's off to the west towards the Drakensberg Mountains. And it all is just wonderfully still and perfect out here. A dead knobthorn tree. And you can see we've only climbed up a termite mound that's probably about maybe only 8 to 10 feet off the ground, and yet we can see for miles and miles. And that clearing, I think that clearing that you're looking at there is probably, must be the clearing in front of the Juma Dam, I think. So, beautiful view there. Right, on we go. See what else we can find. Andrew, do not fall over. Come on, man. And our plan this morning is going to be a fairly gentle walk. Okay. we're going to head probably a little bit to keep going a little bit to the west, and then we're going to head south. Now, Shannon and Chris Rogue, you're concerned about Andrew, and you think that I must make sure that he drinks sufficient water. He certainly did complain bitterly this morning when I said, shall we walk out of camp? He said no, because then I don't have any water at hand. So I think he does have water at hand. But the weather is perfect this morning. I don't think we're going to need much water because it's just very good temperature. And we'll be a little bit thirsty when we're finished, but we're certainly not going to dehydrate in this temperature. Unless, of course, we get onto the tracks of something and have to follow it all the way to Arathusa, in which case we will need some water. Watch out here, Andrew. Well, here's some elephant tracks. So let's just have a look here. There are some elephant tracks, and you can perhaps see there, that's not the elephant track, it's a small section of the elephant track, and you can see the skin of the elephant there. These look relatively fresh. They are going the direction we're going, so we'll walk gently along them and see if we don't come up with them. And then next to that you can also see some buffalo tracks, and these will be from probably a small group of buffalo bulls, and we will be very careful about seeing them. And buffalo bulls and elephant herds, you want to just be making sure that if they do see you and you see them, they're not in a position where they feel cornered or surprised. Then it's perfectly safe, and so we walk very carefully along. Thank you, Jenny M, for your very kind comment that I make you laugh. That is, of course, I feel the highest compliment that anyone can pay me, so much appreciated. Thank you. Ooh. There's also a little scorpion burrow here, a very impressive scorpion, probably of Opistophalmus glabifrons, or the burrowing scorpion. And you can see here the millipedes that he has devoured, and also into the hole where he lives. And I've tried to get these things out, and if you're very patient, you can get them to stick their claws out, but they very seldom will actually come all the way out. And just listening. No, nothing. Given that we are very neat scorpion, yes, and given that we are, you know, we have limited time. I don't want to spend all day trying to pull him out of his home. Here's a wonderful example of what I've shown a few times. This, if you were to look around here, and if you were to look at this tree, you'd say, well, this looks like a young tree. And it isn't a young tree at all. It's actually a very old tree. Look at the size. This is one plant. This is an enormous, enormous tree. And in the absence of elephants that keep breaking these sticks off, it would be one of the biggest trees we'd find around here. It's called a roundleaf teak, and in the absence of elephants you can make furniture out of this tree. Look at the rootstock. It's massive. And every time an elephant bites off one of these sticks, what happens is that the rootstock gets that slightly a little bit wider. And so all around here we've got these very old roundleaf teak plants that look for all the world like a sort of forest of very scrubby young plants that almost looks like they've been purposely seeded here. They're actually pretty old. Just hear a vehicle going past. Right, on we go. Probably precisely what they were talking about with that anti-poaching team. Hello Teresa on Twitter. I'm not sure I know the answer to your question, and I feel like I should. You want to know why that's called the variable bush willow. I think it's called the variable bush willow because it's of variable size, and the leaves are different sizes. Sometimes they're large, sometimes they're small. Now, this is the track or the evidence of buffalo. Buffalo, you can see, have a patty not entirely unlike a cow's, in fact almost exactly the same. Of course, the only way to test the freshness, Andrew, is to...
touch it.
No, we'll just feel if there's any heat. There isn't, it's quite cold. That's a good That's good news. Here it obviously relieved itself from the other end, and so we'll just be very careful. But Andrew, if you come here, there's a spider living in here. So it's, unless this is a spider eating buffalo, this is not that fresh. Look at that, it's a wolf spider. So he will be hunting the insects, the flies, possibly the odd dung beetle that lives in this dung. And that's what he's looking for now. Isn't he lovely? Very upset that we've pulled him out of his perfectly comfortable, semi-warm pile of digested vegetation here. A perfect patty of buffalo dung with a wolf spider on it. So he's looking at Andrew, of course, possibly because he wants to eat something. And he's also a little bit upset, clearly, that we've let him out, that we pulled him out of his dung. But you can also see some of the flies, perhaps, on the dung ball, and there'll be the odd dung beetle underneath there that he's trying to hunt. That's why he'll be here. And he's not a nest-building spider, at least a web-building spider, so he will sort of hunt them. He will rush quickly and grab a fly and eat it. There's one coming very close to him now, just next to his left front foot. But he doesn't seem to be moving exactly. There's a little bright orange fly. He seems to be disinterested in that. Now, the one thing we're not seeing a lot of this season is the dung beetles, and I think that's simply because of the lack of water, lack of rain. And so if there's rain, they'll be out and about, but with the soil this hard and no way of them digging into it, I think you'll find that they probably are not quite as numerous as they would be, which is sad, because they are some of my favorite insects. Right. Now, one of the reasons I decided to walk today, well, there are two reasons. One is that I was assigned to drive Rusty this morning, and given that the fact that how many vertebrae does a human being have, Andrew? 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, that's 19, plus 5 and 5 gives you 29 vertebrae. My 29 vertebrae have compacted into about 4 as a result of driving Rusty. That's one of the reasons we decided to do a walk. And the other is that things have been very quiet around here, and driving around when you've got nothing to look at, well, no big game to look at, is not quite as fun as walking around when you've got no big game to look at, because it's so wonderful to be this close to the bush. So that's why we're having a walk today, and it's just a lovely feeling to have your feet on the ground, to be touching bits and pieces like this tree. And there's a little Franklin walking away from us there, Andrew. You see it? Now, Christina, you ask a very valid question there. Are we ever afraid of something slithering out at us from a termite mound? Christina, yes, we're definitely very careful of that. Absolutely, when I climb up a termite mound, there's a hole. I'm very aware of what could come out of it, and certainly black mambas live in termite mounds, as do some of the cobra species. And we don't really want to spend a great deal with time with them on foot, and well, not in close proximity. Other snakes, yes; those two, not so much. The other thing I wanted to say to you: my binoculars are retrieved. Now, if you see me let them go, they've spent many nights in the bush because I put them down and then I forget about them. You see me drop them, please let us know. Remind me to take them with me. Hello, Justin in New York. Your mother apparently would like to know. Hello, Mrs. Justin. You want to know if we get poisoned plants like poison ivy out here. Mrs. Justin, we don't get poison plants like poison ivy out here. We do get some stinging nettles every so often, but nothing quite as bad. I believe poison ivy is a really nasty plant to get on you. We don't have anything like that out here. You can, I mean, there are a few plants that have latex in them, a sort of poisonous milky latex that might blister your skin a bit, but nothing as far as I understand it like poison ivy. Look, there's a bird in here, Andrew, flying around. It was there. Another one on the ground right in front of us. I don't know what it is. Looks like one of those buntings. There, it is. It's a cinnamon-breasted bunting. You see it there? You'll see it from here if you come. There we go. That's the cinnamon-breasted bunting here. Yeah, you've got it on the ground here. Beautiful. With a drongo, there's obviously an emergence of some kind of insect there. I suspect harvester termites. Let's just stand here briefly. There were some waxbills, some of those cinnamon-breasted buntings, obviously the drongos. Let's go and have a look. They seem to have moved on. Let's go and have a look what they were eating. Lots of birds here. There's an elephant, another elephant track here. I'm just trying to discover what those birds were eating. There are some holes here. And while we're looking around, Maggie in Western Australia, you want to know about that scorpion and whether he eats his dinner inside the burrow or outside, given that it's so neat there. Maggie, I think he probably eats it inside, probably just at the entrance there, so that he can retreat back inside should the need arise. I think all animals out here are quite vulnerable when they're eating, and so he probably eats it either, if not at the entrance, probably inside, and then, as you say, removes the stuff and leaves it in a little midden outside. It is amazing that an arachnid should have such clean habits, especially when some of the higher primates I know have the sort of habits of, well, not nearly as neat as that arachnid. So there's some holes here. I don't know what has been coming out of them. I don't see any termites. Andrew, do you see anything that those birds might have been eating? I mean, that is a seed-eating bird, so perhaps there are a couple of seeds around here that it was eating, but the drongo is not a seed-eating bird. And I don't know what these holes have been made by. I suspect quite strongly that it is a harvester termite mound that is under the ground here, a nest. Anyway, it was a little bird party, which is quite nice. Now, just to keep you informed, for those of you who perhaps on walk with us for the first time, Andrew is walking with a 12 kilogram backpack on his back, and there's an enormous white aerial sticking out, so we have to be fairly careful about where we walk, because if you look above us here, of course there are trees that Andrew has to not bash into. He's so far hit just about every tree we walk past. I mean, that's because he's not quite used to walking. It is a beautiful morning, wonderful just to inhale the air. There's a woodland kingfisher, and can you see its blue halcyon feathers sticking out from the combretum tree there? Can you see it?
Negative.
Right, you can see the silver cluster leaf in front of us.
Ah, yes, I got him.
You got him. Super zoom him, Andrew. Just look at the colour.
Just wait a sec. There he is.
Look at the colour of the kingfisher there in relation to the green combretum bush around him. There, he's opened his wings. That's a little territorial display. He's obviously caught himself a little insect. What a perfect picture of him. He's just sharpening his beak a bit. Very cool. Now this is interesting. Sharon, while we're watching that beautiful kingfisher, Sharon, you want to know what I consider to be completely essential when we go on a bushwalk. Scott takes a whole backpack full of things. It's very much a personal choice thing. I take the ash bag so that we can check the wind. The stick is purely for effect. I don't consider it a total necessity. A pair of binoculars is a necessity so that you can see what's going on. And then for safety, the 2 radios. One game drive radio, one Louise in final control radio. And those are the only things that I consider really important. I could carry a small first aid kit, but in truth, you know, I mean, if you get a little cut or something like that and you need a plaster for it, that will last till you get to the vehicle. You know, if you have a large-scale trauma out here, you can't carry a first aid kit big enough. You're going to need to be able to call for help. So that's all that I think. I used to carry books. But it becomes so cumbersome to carry books and try and get them out and show people what you're looking at. And so I find walking like this is much less of an encumbrance, and it's just much more comfortable to be able to look around without something sitting on my back. Andrew, of course, is not blessed with the same choices as I am out here. He's got an enormous moon bag. What's in your moon bag, Andrew? Knives,
cleaning cloths,
batteries, basically all the camera equipment he's got in there. Okay, we're going to carry on down sort of towards Buffelshoek Dam area. Let's head across to Brent, see what he's doing, and I'll catch up with you very shortly.
So, we have finished the whole southern boundary of track. We are now driving very slowly up the western boundary, looking for any tracks whatsoever. So we're busy on a boundary safari, hoping to find tracks of lion or leopard coming in or going out, just so we know what's going on. I've got the Arathusa game drive radio on, so if there's anything found backside, we'll be able to go there as well. I'm just looking at something interesting here. Trying to figure out what's going on. It's a very strange track I'm looking at here. Just give me a moment, please. It almost looks like a drag mark, but not quite. And the tracks next to it almost look like leopard tracks, but not quite. So I just want to have a closer look. Very fine little track that's going past here. Where does it go next? Down the road a bit. very, very strange track. Now this strange. I told you it was a strange track. What it looks like to me is possibly a bigger mongoose or white-tailed mongoose or whatnot, and it's been disturbed by something, but it was dragging something, and as I said, it looked like a very strange drag mark. And I'll show you now, but
Right, a crash cut away from Brent Leo Smith here, just to look at a black-headed oriole, which has flown away. That is deeply, deeply irksome. I'm not sure if we're going to go back to Brent or not. I will wait for instruction. You did see the bird. That is excellent. So let's go back to Brent. We're going to carry on down through here.
There, and you can see there's a footprint just to the right there, and I followed them, and so I started looking around. I initially thought maybe possibly serval dragging something, but I think it's more likely a honey badger. And it was dragging a snake that it's killed, and then I think a car's come past and disturbed it, and it's dropped the snake next to the road. It's quite a big snake. Half of it looks like it's eaten already. It started being eaten. I think it's quite fresh. I think a honey badger was eating, not sure what snake this is. Very difficult without the head, but it is actually is a fresh kill. Very, very difficult to see. It started eating the top, so I think it actually was us that disturbed the honey badger, and I said nearly impossible to ID the snake without a head, but from the fat tail I think it's one of the blind snakes. It looks like a honey badger's caught a snake. I'm going to leave it. Hopefully that animal will come back. And finish it. So sometimes a lot of these smaller creatures like honey badgers are not really relaxed, but isn't that incredible? It's definitely worth coming to have a look a little bit later to see if it has come back for that snake. As I said, it looked like a very strange track with a drag mark. The road's quite hard here. So, yeah, a honey badger and a snake kill, but I think as we were moving slowly up the road, we've given it a fright. So hopefully it'll be back. So I said, it looked like a very strange sort of drag mark, but not quite a drag mark, but obviously it was. And the reason it was strange, when I first saw it, I thought it might be something dragging a small antelope like baby impala and one sort of foot trailing, but it turned out it wasn't a foot, it was a whole snake that it was pulling between its legs. So we're going to continue checking for tracks, and tracking is one of my favorite things to do. I'm hoping we find tracks of possibly Shadow or Tingana. to be having a slight issue with my communications. So it seems like I've lost all communications all of a sudden. So I'm just going to try fix them quickly while we move slowly down the road. Kids, have you still got comms? Are you hearing? I'm hearing absolutely nothing at the moment. Sorry about that, guys. I can't hear anything. I'm going to need to take a minute or two to try to figure out what's going on. Okay, so while we do that, let's go to James, see what he's up to.
Link starting. Hello everybody. Andrew is walking backwards, obviously, and we're coming down a road here, still on the elephant tracks, but the elephant tracks we had, we found some more dung. I stuck my hand in it, I felt it gently with the back of my hand, and it was pretty cold. In fact, cold to the point of being refrigerated by the wind. And here is some more over here. And I don't think that we're going to find these elephants, certainly not around the next corner. That's a bit of sticky dung there. So what you do is you break it open and then you just touch it with the back of it. Ooh, this one's a little bit warmer. Warmer in the middle than it is on the top. So not very fresh, probably from last night sometime. We'll keep along here. They would have stopped moving eventually. With any luck, we'll have a decent view of them. We also found tracks of a single lioness, and she was walking along this road and went off towards the drainage line there. Now, I mean, they're not fresh tracks at all. It's possible. You know, there was a lot of mating going on with those Birmingham fellows, that one of them's got pregnant, she's left the Nkuhuma Pride and she's come off into this area. I don't think that's what's happened, but it's possible. And the implication there, of course, being that she's got cubs somewhere. We're going to head through here, Andrew. And, I mean, you don't really want to come across a den full of lions, but, you know, makes great TV. Now, Chris Rogue on Twitter. Chris Rogue, there's an interesting question from you. You want to know about a millipede and whether it has an internal skeleton. No, it doesn't have an internal skeleton in the way that you think of a skeleton. There are no bones in a millipede. A millipede's rigidity comes from the exoskeleton. That's why they're called invertebrates, or part of the invertebrate, what do we call it, phylum. They're the invertebrate phylum, which includes all of the millipedes, the mollusks, which are the snails, the crustaceans, which are the crabs, the cephalopods, which are the squid, the octopods, which, no, I think an octopus is in fact a mollusk. I'm not really sure about that one. I have to check. And then, of course, the enormous orders of the insects, and then the arachnids, and none of them have any kind of internal skeleton. And they're called invertebrates because they don't have an internal skeleton. So a millipede is an invertebrate without an internal skeleton, and its rigidity is purely from its outside exoskeleton. I hope that answers your question, Chris. So the only animals, unless I've missed something, which I'm 99.99% sure I haven't, and the only animals with internal skeletons are the vertebrates, and that would include, Andrew's just wiping the lens there, that would include the 5 classes of vertebrates, and those are the amphibians, the fish, the birds, the reptiles, and of course the mammals. Andrew's cables are getting stuck on a Flugia virosa, or white berry bush. Andrew? I'll have to bop you on the head with my stick just now. Right, so we're now walking down through a drainage line area. You can see a dry riverbed, and we call it a drainage line. You can see that. And while we stand in this drainage line, a very nice question from Dolly in Ontario. Dolly, I think that's quite appropriate to your question. You want to know, you say that you know I enjoy the walk. Does the cameraman enjoy the walk? I think we'll hand that over to the cameraman. Cameraman, do you enjoy the walk? You see, they do enjoy the walks. I think not all the time. I think if it's very hot, it becomes a lot more difficult for the cameraman than it is for us. Temperature's very nice at the moment, and I don't think they feel terrified. No, I think Andrew, you don't feel nervous, do you? Possibly on the first few walks out here. And look, you can get into a situation when you're viewing a big animal, and you are encumbered, of course. You're not, he's not as free to move as I am, and so that might be a little bit nerve-wracking if we happen to be viewing something large and potentially harmful. But that's not the case most of the time, Dolly. And it's a nice break from the vehicles. Those vehicles can be quite jarring, especially for the cameraman, physically for the presenters on walk and on the vehicles. Of course, while we like to present ourselves as these great big physical bush heroes, it's a far more physical job for the cameraman than it is for us. They're moving around all the time on the back of those cars, jolting about. It's much more comfortable in the back than it is in the front. And basically we're inert. We need the same fitness levels as a sloth to be a presenter out here. Sorry, Andrew, let's try and get you up through here. There we go. This one must try and be polite to the cameraman, otherwise he won't go for a walk with you. Now, James Bear, I think you've just made an excellent point. While I move this Ziziphus out the way, if I get caught in this, people, I will be only out of it by next year, which of course is only 2 days away. Go through there, Andrew. James Bear, you want to know if I've noticed a reduction in spiders since the beginning of the drought last year. James, I think that I have. I think the real test is going to be when we have a look in January and February at whether the golden orbweb spiders come out. And I think that we're going to find that there are far fewer this year, simply because of the fact that there is so much less rain. And I mean, if we walk around here, just if Andrew puts the camera sort of onto the ground and looks around, there's no greenery on the ground at all. And there's lots and lots of very kind of dry, open, sandy patch. And that's really not great if you happen to be an animal that likes to eat grass, which so many out here do. Now that'll change. I mean, if we get 50 millimeters of rain, it'll change. But what they're predicting, and we were asked about this yesterday, what they're predicting is a sort of huge dumping of rain. I can smell waterbuck. They're predicting a huge dumping of rain in February time. Now, February, March is the end of the growth season, and what that means is that once the day length has got below a certain level, plants will sort of go dormant in preparation for the next rainy season. So even if we get late rain, it might not actually help us at all, because the growth season will be over. This is a fascinating termite mound here. Andrew, have you been through this area before? I haven't.
No.
Look at this termite mound, people. It's a massive thing. And look at the holes in it. And I'm sure these have been dug by Art Vark. Tom Dallas, you're absolutely correct, Tom. You say that when you come to a termite mound, it's good to approach the burrow from the side, lest a warthog should come herring out of it and bash you in the legs. Definitely, completely correct, Tom. We, of course, are at the opposite side of the drainage line from this, and if there was a warthog in there, it wouldn't come blasting out at this distance. We'd have to get a bit closer to it. So what we're going to do is go to the side. I don't think there's a warthog in there. There might be. There might also be an aardvark. Andrew, do you want to wait there? Oh, why don't you wait? I tell you what, you wait there, and you don't have to climb onto it. And I'll go around the side and onto the mound from the other side, and let's see what happens. Still many tracks of elephants through here. And the elephants have climbed this mound. It's amazing. They've walked all over this area here. They're amazingly dexterous. Let's see if anything comes out of the mound. Of course, if it does come out as I approach from the side, it'll probably run into Andrew. Andrew, watch out. There don't seem to be any fresh tracks here. I mean, there's certainly quite a few ant lions, which are little immature insects. They look like little dragonflies when they're adults, or lacewings. Now, what I'm going to do is knock. No warthog there at all. And there are no fresh tracks around here, so I don't think there's anything in this burrow. I may be missing something, but I'm pretty sure that it's empty. Just a wonderful, wonderful example, though, of the kind of vegetation we get on these drainage lines. And often I use the term drainage line, and I think sometimes people don't know what it means. It's just a dry stream. It's a channel down which water would drain were there sufficient rain here, and obviously not a lot of water going to be flowing down here this year. Right, Andrew, come around here. We shall meet on this side of the termite mound and continue on our merry way. Andrew's legs are going to be cut to pieces by the end of this. He's a diker. Did you see it? Very tricky to catch with the camera. You got him, Andrew? Yeah, he's just exactly, that's right. You can see that movement, everybody. That was the diker. He ran, I'm sure he's been watching us for a while, wondering what's going on, and he ran off into the bushes. Right, we're going to go up and over the top here, simply because we can't go through there without getting Andrew tangled. Marilyn, you want to know about fire hazards, and does all the dry grass around here present some sort of a fire hazard? Marilyn, remember the big fire hazard here is grass, you're correct, but without a wet season where the grass grows very tall, there is no fire hazard at all for the grass. So, you know, after drought, there's no fire hazard. You get a fire hazard after a season of very heavy rain, and then so the grass gets big and tall, and then you have a dry winter, which is totally normal, and then around September, October, when the lightning starts to flash before the proper rains, that's when you have a fire hazard. So a drought is not something that is ever caused, or a drought doesn't cause a fire hazard. Let's go that way. And Laura on Twitter, yes, yeah, you want to know about the drought and whether the farms around the area are being affected. Yes, they are. It's actually a bit of a dire situation, and Steph was telling me yesterday he's got a friend who's a farmer and works for the agricultural department in the Northern Cape, which is one of the provinces in South Africa, and things are rough. Things are getting very rough. And it's not so much the farmers who, you know, the commercial farmers who often have viable businesses. Some of them will really struggle and suffer. Come around this way, Andrew. But it's the rural people who live on the fringes of, you know, on sort of government land, who have, you know, 5 or 6 cattle or 10 cattle, and that's those cattle represent their wealth. And they're being told, Steph says, by the government that they need to either sell what they can and slaughter the rest and only keep the best breeding stock. And that's simply because they don't think we're going to get any rain here. Now you imagine telling somebody who's a poverty-stricken rural person without an education that some kind of sophisticated computer model has predicted that there's not going to be rain until February, and therefore that the grass will not grow properly because the growing season is finished. Can you imagine trying to explain to that person that they now need to slaughter the only source of wealth they have? There's no ways they'll be able to refrigerate all the meat and sell what they can. It's a very difficult problem. It's quite distinct from the problems that there will be with commercial farmers, because they at least understand it. They're obviously, to some extent, have droughts built into their business models and their insurance policies. But it's the vast majority of South Africans who are rural people, who really live hand to mouth. They live on the fringes of poverty all the time, and it's them that are really going to struggle at the back end of a drought like this. Come through there, Andrew. Not leaning on the stick for joy. There we go, well done. I'm really walking Andrew through some pretty heavy stuff here. We'll try and get onto a ridge crest where it's a bit clearer. That was a knobthorn. That's called karma. Ooh, I haven't seen this plant here before. This is an entirely uninteresting plant, save for the fact that I haven't seen it here before. It's called Merua parvifolia, or the dwarf bush cherry, and it's this kind of little plant here. And I can tell you nothing interesting about it, other than the fact that I haven't seen it before. This is a beautiful piece of grass, though, and I think it's a Chloris species. Probably Chloris guyana, or Chloris, it's too small to be Chloris roxburghiana, it's my favourite name. But you can see the seeds there blowing in the wind. Those would have been eaten by any number of birds. And we watched one of those cinnamon-breasted buntings the other day leaping up, and it would grab the inflorescence because it's too tall for the bird to actually sort of stand and feed on it. So it would grab the inflorescence, bend it over onto the ground, and then sit and feed. It would hold it down with its foot and then feed on the seeds on the end of the inflorescence, which I thought was very clever of a cinnamon-breasted bunting with a brain the size of half a pea to do that. That's very impressive indeed. Now, there's a question about termite mounds and how many different kinds of animals will live in termite mounds. Careful, Andrew, if you fall in that, it will be the end of your legs. Jenny M. Can be a few. You'll find some will happily live together, you'll find some will not. And I'm trying to think of there's some pretty interesting ones that seem to be escaping my mind. Mongoose, I think, will probably live with, or in the company of monitor lizards sometimes, I think. Snakes will probably live alone. You may well find, I know what I was thinking of. You can sometimes find warthog and hyena in the same mound. I don't think if it's a big mound like the den that we watch so often, I don't think warthog would go in there. But sometimes they will share a den, or sort of share it as maybe an overnight stop, something like that. So, yeah, that's quite an interesting one. And what else? Obviously, lots of invertebrates will share a den, but I think the rest of them tend to be it's quite cozy in there. It's quite snug. You don't want to be sharing it with too many others. Yeah.
Meerkats sharing with ground squirrels.
There we go. Meerkats used to share with ground squirrels in the Kalahari, where Andrew used to work, where he cut his teeth as a wildlife filmmaker. Very interesting. There is a beautiful picture of the moon, the waning moon. It was full on Christmas Day, which I think is a very appropriate time to have a full moon, really. I seem to be losing communications with the final control. Let me move away from Andrew. Try again, Louise. There we go. Louise was just commenting at how beautiful the moon is with that blue sky, indeed. Now, Andrew, look at this. We have an egg sac from a spider. And indeed, you can even see the spiderlings. Look at them. You see the little spiderlings? They've already hatched. Hundreds and hundreds of them. Jeepers. Sorry, I've moved, that's me bashing the bush here. I'm going to turn it around, Andrew, because there are, look at how many there are. Look at that. Look at all those little spiderlings, everybody. Hundreds of them that have come out of this egg sac. And they're a little pale green colour. And they've all come out of that white egg sac there. And I think that they are the offspring of a tropical tent web spider. I might be wrong, but I think that's what they are. And I don't think the adult will be here. I suspect that so she made the egg sac out of silk, and then she sort of encased it in a matrix of beautiful silk, and that matrix has protected the egg sac until the spiderlings have hatched. And now they will be on their own. Now, because there are so many of them, I think you can safely say that probably 70 or 80% of them will be devoured by some kind of predator before they make it to adulthood. But that really is a very special sighting. I'm just going to turn it around again. And there, that was the original position that it was in. Oh, sorry about that, everybody. Beautiful. Quite astonishing. And those are the little gems that unfortunately you do tend to miss when you're on drive, and certainly with the sun shining onto that silk, it's just very, very beautiful. Right, on we go. Well done, Andrew. Good job. Now here is the kind of thing that we were talking about earlier. This is the mound of Odontotermes, also a fungus-growing termite, but this is exactly the kind of mound into which Scott Dyson the other day had an enormous black mamba taking residence. And so I wouldn't go pointing around, fossicking about in these holes without a very clear idea of an escape route. So we won't do that. I think this mound is inactive. You can see lots of different trees coming out of it, and that means there could be dwarf mongoose lurking about. I don't see any of their dung, so probably not. There could be black mamba. Oh, there is some dwarf mongoose dung. Come look here, Andrew. Watch out for the mambas. There's some dwarf mongoose dung, and so it's old. So mongoose were obviously resident in here at some stage. But I don't think that... Ooh. You hear that? There's an impala alarm calling through there. Sounds like it's rutting. They shouldn't be rutting now. Let's go and look. Let's go and see what we can find. I don't think they're alarm calling. They're probably having a fight. Why they would be having a fight, I don't know though. Just in case you're wondering where Brent Leo Smith is, he's had to go back home to change his earpiece. He's done quite a lot of presenting to the ether this morning simply because he hasn't been able to tell when he's on air and not on air. Right, now we're going to walk quietly through here. simply because I don't want the impala to hear us, and I want to see what they're doing. It's quite nice and clear, so we can walk relatively quietly. So Claire, I'm just going to talk a little bit more quietly as we walk through here. You want to know about these termite mounds, these castles of clay. This is not a very big one, but yes, some of them are really impressive. Claire, and you want to know how long they take to build? Is it over the course of years? It is absolutely over the course of years, and I think some of them are probably hundreds of years old. I think that in a year they can probably build about a cubic meter, or between a half a cubic meter and half a cubic meter and 1 cubic meter. So that's probably, I mean, a cubic meter would be about that much. 9 cubic feet, roughly 9 cubic feet. And so that's the kind of amount that they could build in a year. So you can imagine how much. In fact, I think that's probably even less than that. Let's call it half. So let's call it 4.5 cubic feet of sort of mound in a year. You can imagine how old some of these things must be. The impala seem to be moving away. Let's go up this way, and then it's a bit clearer. We can walk without encumbrance. You can see their tracks here. They've been around here for sure. Well, those look a bit round to be impala tracks. Yeah, that one looks like an impala track. Let's carry on through here. So I don't know if you heard them, but they were going puh, puh, puh. Watch the rock there. So that, which initially sounded like an alarm call, but then they started to sort of growl at each other, which is totally normal. That's some hyena dung that Andrew found there. We're going to keep on walking through here quietly. We'll see what we can find. Brent is back up online. Let's go and check in with him, and I'll catch up with you on the other side of that thicket.
Well, sorry about that. My earpiece had a malfunction. I had to go fetch another one. So I'm back, and I'm on my way to the hyena den. See if there's any action there this morning. So I just got an update from the south of us. Karula has been found on a kill, but outside of our traverse zone. Quarantine male leopard was also found heading south towards Malamala. So, and Tingana has been found in Torchwood. So Mvula, I'm not sure where he is, that he hasn't been found. But if Tingana's in Torchwood, he's pushed Mvula even further east. So unfortunately, I don't think there is a single leopard on our property this morning. That can obviously change during the day, and hopefully this evening there'll be a bit of a change. And I'm quite confident there's not a single lion. Found that incredible track of a honey badger dragging a snake earlier, and Julia in Houston wanted to know whether that honey badger could be hiding in the hollow log right next to the snake. No, Julia, it wouldn't have. It would have moved off. It wouldn't have stayed there, especially not with me walking around. John in England. John says, given that lion roars are mostly contact calls, can you tell how far away they are? Well, John, when we talk about sort of lions calling and leopard calling, a contact call is not a roar. A contact call is a very low sort of ow, ow, ow between lions, and sometimes leopards make a very similar noise when they're contacting cubs. A roar, it is in some ways a contact call. It's more of a proclamation of territory. So lions roar to tell other lions that this is their area. So you can, when they are roaring loudly, tell how far they're away, or you can guess. And with the human ears, lion roars on a very still day or evening can be heard for up to about 15 kilometers. But normally you can sort of tell, all right, if you got some experience, quite easily how far away they are. And look at that, we are in luck. We have 2 moms and 3 suckling cubs. So in front of us we have the mom suckling a slightly older cub. You can see it's already starting to get his spots. And then behind is the mom we've been seeing more of with the 2 younger little cubs. Misika Gallagher shortcut active 2130 3-month Bimpan. Trude on Twitter would like to know, do hyena cubs have sharp claws? Not necessarily, not sharp like a cat's claws. Their claws are like the adults, often far more blunted. They're permanently out, so they're constantly working and sort of blunting. I'm sure they're reasonably sharp, similar to a dog's claws, but a dog that actually moves and runs a lot, not one that sort of stays indoors and doesn't wear its claws down. Sorry guys, it's going to be on the Game Drive channel again. Sorry Craig, go again. Craig, I'd guess around between first and second rock somewhere. That was just Craig asking where he thinks I heard those lions. Hey Firm, thanks. We had a tracks crossing into that side yesterday. It's a very peaceful morning here at the hyena den. On Twitter was wondering how deep this termite mine goes. It's probably a good 3 or 4 meters into some of the chambers, and some chambers will be bigger than others, but that's the section utilized by the hyenas. The actual termite mound, if we work out from here, the termite mound starts about there and ends there. How many meters do you reckon that is, Tebs, if we go straight up? 2.5, 3? Yeah. So 3 meters. So on average, you've got a third of the termite mound above the ground. So from there, so if that's 3 meters, it goes another 6 meters down to the old termite colonies. This is not active with termites anymore, but this would have been one of the large fungus-growing termites originally. And so they would have had fungus farms up to about 6 meters down. I'm not sure what 6 meters is in feet, but it's quite a lot. I think it's over 20 feet down from where we are now, and that would be the termite chambers, not the chambers obviously utilized by the hyenas. Those would probably only go maybe not 2-3 meters in, but there'll be other chambers off it. So it's warming up quite quickly. I'm just going to take my jersey off. The thirsty little ones. It's possible that the adults have been out foraging for quite a while and only arrived this morning. So from a large carnivore to the smallest carnivore in Africa with James.
Everybody, this is just so special. It's like a little block of flats in which live little dwarf mongoose, and they've all come out onto their porches, onto their verandas to look at us and enjoy the rising sun. Isn't that just spectacular? There's a young one on the left, a young one on the right, and an adult below, and you can't really hear them, but they're making little alarm calls. And this is where they get their name, their Shangaan name, which is Matsigitsoch. It's an onomatopoeic name because of that call, that alarm call that they make. Now 2 of them coming out the bottom. We're sitting 5 meters or 15 feet from this mound, and they are fascinated by us. And this is the thing with these mongoose. If you spend enough time with them, they will eventually habituate. And I think, just like the meerkats of the Kalahari where Andrew used to work, they become completely habituated. I'm pretty sure that these chaps, if we followed the same troop every day, they would just let us walk with them. And that's not to say we want to domesticate them at all, but I think they would very happily be around us. Is that not so special? 4 little holes, like a little block of flats. I think this is just too precious. One of them looks like it might even come up. Now, you won't be able to hear this, but to the right of your screen, I can hear another one calling. And maybe an early sort of foraging party that went out, and we're now between that one and the mound, and they're talking to each other, obviously a little bit worried about what's going on, but they'll be talking to each other. But these ones are becoming very, very habituated. We're going to sit here for a little bit longer. Let's head back to Brent, and here's a larger mound with the larger carnivores. I'm going to sit here for a bit longer and see you just now.
So, look at this. One of the tiny little guys from the more beaten up mother has finished feeding and has come down to explore, and so has the slightly older cub. And he's probably getting to around 2 months now, and you can see the spots coming out. Time for games. Oh. Now, all this little fun and games is all practice for once they get a bit older. Jenny M is wondering, who is that other hyena? The two tiny little black ones were born this month in December, and the other one probably about 2 months, born in November, more than likely. We have seen it before. Oh, November is dragging December. So it'll be interesting to see what happens now if this game escalates as to who the dominant female out of these two is. I think it is the slightly more ragged individual at the top of the mound. And the fact that November is dragging December around like that, probably, not for sure, but probably leads me to believe that November is a female and December is possibly a male. And once the other December hyena decides to finish drinking and get involved in the gamemanship, we'll be able to tell a little bit more. So hyenas have, especially, and you see how December is actually touching up against the adult female there, and that probably leads me to believe that the hyena higher up on the mound is the dominant of the two adults here. So he's popping some sun cream on. The sun is quite bright, even though it's very early in the morning. Big games, I think, are in order shortly after feeding time's finished. Hope you guys are getting some great screenshots of this. Oh, here comes trouble. It looks like the next of the Decembers is looking like it's trying to decide whether to have another drink or, oh no, here it comes, or she comes. Now we'll see. Quite interesting. Now there is a possibility that the two Decembers are both males, and although hyenas practice Cain and Abel syndrome, so if two baby females are born, the firstborn will kill the secondborn. But with males, they do that sometimes, but not all the time. So it looks possible that both of the little December twins are males, and that's not good news for them. And you don't want to be a male hyena. You are the bottom of the pecking order. And the lowest ranking female of the clan is higher ranking than the highest ranked male. Bit of mountaineering on Mom. And there's quite a bit of boisterous playing there, nothing too serious yet, but whatever happens, we can definitely see that the larger one is more dominant, and that leads me to believe that possibly both December twins are males, because from what we've seen around the den, the battered female seems to be higher ranking than the younger female who's in better condition. Now there is always a possibility that this younger female, the mother of November, is her daughter, But as I said, it's so difficult to work out on a constant basis what's going on at the hyena den. Elizabeth in California is wondering, how often do male hyena cubs survive? They do survive to adulthood quite frequently, but I mean, all young animals can have quite a high mortality rate out in the wild. But if they do survive to adulthood, they are the ones that will normally migrate away from their natal den and or natal clan and try to join a different clan. Yeah, Mom's tattered ears are making a good chew toy. You can see, even though they do probably have sharp little teeth, you can see how tough a hyena is. That chewing on the ear seemed to not affect her at all. She didn't even lift her head. Ashley on Twitter is wondering, is it possible for multiple hyenas to have the same rank in the clan? It's not, Ashley. So it's a matriarchal society. So the matriarch female will be the highest ranked, followed by her daughters in age lineage, and then you'll have beta females, gamma female, delta female, going on to depending on how many individuals are in the clan. Well, let's see what happens now. You can see how she's licking. And so that would lead me to believe that possibly that the two adult hyenas are related, that she is very tolerant of the little cubs, and that also leads me to believe that it's possible that the female lying on top of the den is higher ranking than her. Sorry about that little that spray. It's just me putting on some sun cream. Even at this time of the morning, before 7 a.m., the sun out here in the African bush is already quite harsh. See, even though she's putting her mouth and nipping the little ones, she is still quite gentle with them, compared to, say, if a low-ranking hyena's cubs approached a higher-ranking female, she would probably be a lot more serious in her discipline of them. And she's playing quite nicely with her cub. So it would be very interesting if that slightly older cub decided to move towards the battered female who's lying on top of behind at the den, and there we would see definite display whether she would put up with another hyena's cubs like this younger female is doing, or she would severely discipline it. But the younger female definitely tolerates the older battered female's cubs. Big game between mom and youngster now. I actually read an interesting article recently. Oh, here we go. Let's see what happens. There's just too much confusion. Too many hyenas all over the place. Lois in New York is wondering, when December 1 and 2 get bigger, will they possibly defend themselves against the November cub? If they are males and she is a female, no, not at all, which I think is in the case. Obviously at this age it's very difficult to be certain. Oh, the other female has just taken off at high speed away from the den. Maybe enough of playing with the cub. Be interesting to see if the cub comes back now. So we're going to stay at the den for a little bit longer, see what's happening. While we do that, let's go back to James, who's with a carnivore that is smaller. An adult is smaller than a baby hyena.
So we're still here with these little mongoose, and they're becoming more and more confiding, so I can talk at the normal voice. Some of them have gone back inside, some came out. There's one now on the top right hand side, Andrew, on the log. That's a baby. Now the bottom right hand side. So they all keep coming out to have a quick look at us and see what's going on here. They're enjoying the sun. There are quite a few of them off to the behind us, or behind the mound, foraging about on this the dead tree behind. And then there's also, I can actually see some about 40 meters away, just foraging around in the distance. So this whole troop is quite widely spread, and there are possibly up to sort of 50 or 60 of them in the troop. I don't think there are quite that many, but there might be. And then there are others that are calling off to the right hand side. They're making little swizzling noises, and it's just so wonderful to sit here with them. I can actually see the one that's calling, and if you look over there, you might be able to see it, and you can see its mouth moving as it calls, making little high-pitched plaintive whistles. I think it's too nervous to come running across the bush here. You got it, Andrew? Can you see it with your eyes? You might be in the wrong place. I think you won't be able to see it from here. And you're just going to quickly try and see. Can you see it there? It's in the bottom of that sort of group of sticks. You're looking in the right place, but right on the right hand side. I think you need to stand where I am. If you come and stand on my left, yeah, you might be able to see it there. Sean, while Andrew tries to find that mongoose, or he's not going to anymore, Sean, you want to know what dwarf mongoose do when you try and approach them on foot. Sean, well, they do exactly what they're doing here. Normally they run away, and if you sit for long enough, they're very curious, and they'll come out and have a look, especially this time of the day, because now is only when, round about now, is the time that they start to get going. They keep very sort of civilized hours, do the dwarf mongoose. They don't like to get out of bed too early, certainly nothing like as early as we get out of bed. And so they like to be in the mound, and they won't run away. I mean, if we get up, as soon as we move at all, they disappear back inside. But I think what you'll find is that if we were to do this every day with the same troop of mongoose, I think that within a month or two, they would just go about their business completely without looking at us. Andrew, I'll tell you what, hand me the camera, and I'll get this one for you, and then you can do the focus on it. No wonder you can't see anything. It's got this red peaking on. I mean, it just looks like a great big splodge. I actually can't tell what I'm looking at with it all. Ah, now I've got him. He's in there. There.
Oh, I see him. I see him now.
It's never there. There you are, Andrew.
Go, James.
No, I don't know how to do this. Is the red stuff focused or unfocused?
Focused.
Okay, so his eyes are in focus. Look at that. This is like Derek Schubert at his prime. Very sweet. Now how do I super zoom him? What do I push? You push it. Oh goodness, look at that. That's spectacular. Super zoomed him, everyone. That's why it's moving around at such a terrible speed. Beautiful. So he's making contact calls to the mound, and I'm going to hand back over to Andrew. Andrew, how do I unsuper zoom? Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. Let's hand it back over to the professional. And he's just calling towards the mound there. I think he's got separated as we walked in, and I think he's a bit nervous, whoever he is. The rest of them, I mean, as soon as we moved when we got here, they'd disappear back inside. Now Andrew stood up, he's moved around. They go back and then they come stick their heads out almost immediately again. All right, let's move on from here. But before we do that, I just want to show you something else that I discovered only after we'd been sitting here while you were having that wonderful hyena sighting. This is a harvested termite nest. It's under the ground, and this is the entrance here. You might be able to see one or two of the harvested termites there. But what you can also see is the collection of food that they have gathered around their den. And you can see they've chopped off and harvested dead grass and some living grass, which we can ill afford, I suppose. And they're going to pull it down there slowly over the course of the next few days, I think, and then they'll eat it. Isn't that amazing? This beautiful concentric circle of perfectly chopped pieces of vegetation. And then you can see, the ants actually attacking the termites. Certainly ants, of course, are one of the major predators of termites. Oh dear. And I can't see what you can see, but Louise says there's a termite being carried away by an ant. So definitely there is a bit of conflict going on there. Oh dear. And there's a spider there as well, I think. Oh yes, there is. There's another termite being caught by an ant at the entrance. Great violent battle going on here. Go away, ants. This is quite astonishing. So I don't know where the soldiers are. The soldiers, I think, when I sat down, basically all of them would have disappeared inside. And these stragglers are the ones that are being attacked by the ants, possibly because there are no soldier termites around to defend them. And they've plugged the entrance. That's interesting. They've actually plugged the entrance. And I think the ones that are going to be eaten by the ants are those that didn't get the call to go inside. It is amazing. Absolutely incredible stuff. Oh, that's a spider.
Oh, spider.
It's a spider. Murderous little creature. Yeah, killing him. Dead. So I've never seen that before. Oh, that's incredible. The power in that jumping spider is unbelievable. And what the spider will do is now inject the termite, leap on its back, inject it with venom, probably bite it a few times, and that will eventually cause the termite to basically be digested within its own exoskeleton. And the spider will hang around here, might try and drag it away, but I think it'll probably stand right where it is and then suck the liquefied innards out of the termite. Pay shame, poor little termite. Yes, I think it's in its death throes now. See, its legs have stopped moving. That jumping spider is minute. That's like me grabbing an see, I whipped it away from the ant. This is unbelievable. There's the spider. People, that's like me. He's jumping with it. He's jumping with the termite in his mouth.
Oh, there's another.
There's an ant taking another termite away. The termites are taking a pasting here. But that jumping spider carried the termite away. There he is on the grass stick. It's 4 or 5 times. The termite is 4 or 5 times the size of the spider. These are all worker termites, that's why they're totally defenseless.
I've lost the spider.
I think he's gone. He's hiding behind that grass stalk. Amazing. Alright, let's head across to Brent. Leo Smith is still at the den with the other residents of the den, which I forgot to mention the other day, of course. The pygmy kingfisher is living with the hyenas.
So the hyenas have gone to the other side of the den, but as they disappeared, the pygmy kingfisher arrived. Beautiful little bird, one of the dwarf kingfishers. We get 2 species in this area. Pygmies are intra-African migrants, so they have migrated down, only here for our summer months. The other one, which is a proper fishing kingfisher, the malachite kingfisher, is here throughout the year. So pygmy kingfishers are insectivorous kingfishers, so they're often found quite far from water, and they prefer to feed off insects. I've never actually seen one dive for fish. The only time I've seen them around water is when they drink. We actually have a pair that drink at the swimming pool quite often. Very beautiful little bird. So Whitney on Twitter is wondering whether a bird's beak will continue to grow like a human's fingernails. As far as I'm aware, it's not. It's not keratin, so it's not the same substance. You might find their nails might continue to grow, but not their beak. Off it goes. Oh, into the hole. Right into the hyena den hole. Wonder if it saw a nice big fat tick crawling around and back. Oh. Behind us now. Just behind that quarry branch, unfortunately. You can just make out the beak there. Such beautiful birds. The orange, the blue, and the little pink cheeks. Oh, it looks like one of the little hyena cubs has just popped his head out. Mom has moved off, so not going to be nearly as brave, and we're probably not going to stay here while Mom's not here. So we're going to move on now. and see what else we can find. Maybe that big English has flown off. Got no visual of any hyenas. So, time to move on. Christopher in Arizona, as we leave this hyena den, is wondering whether I think it's possible for hyenas to feel love for the young, or is it all just instinct? Well, that's a very interesting question. A difficult one to answer, Christopher, and I'm quite sure you're going to get different answers out of all the different presenters. I myself think it's probably mostly maternal instinct. Whether that's not a hyena's form of love, who am I to say? And I'd say a lot of that looking after, when it comes to a lot of the wild animals, is instinct. With most animals out here, they will try to defend their young to a point, and then if it's too dangerous in the fact that they're going to lose their lives possibly, they will abandon the youngster to their fate, and with knowing the fact they can always have more babies. I have seen male lions eat their own cubs when they're after a big fight and they haven't been able to catch any food and in bad condition. So they eat their own cubs to save their lives. And there is records of lionesses doing that as well. So, and I'm not sure about hyenas, but I would think if push came to shove and the female hyena had to choose between her survival, because if she's not going to survive, her cub certainly isn't going to survive. I think she would also probably eat her own cub. Now, a lot of people think this is quite brutal and savage, but that is the wild. It is not Disney. This is real life out here, I'm afraid. Joe from Arizona is wondering whether our roads are hard surfaced all year round, or they actually get muddy and undrivable during heavy rain. Joe, now that completely depends on the road. When you're up on the crests like this, on the quartzites, on the granite soils, they are pretty much drivable for most or through all rain. And when you cross seep lines and you get heavy clays, you will get stuck. So it just depends on the soil that we're driving on. Certain areas are worse than others, but yes, they do get very muddy and sticky during heavy rains. Good morning to Ron in sunny Florida. You guys in Florida know a little bit about sunburn out there as well. Ron would like to know, when do hyena cubs start eating meat? Well, Ron, probably at about 3 or 4 months. They might chew on some meat brought back to the den before then. But hyenas are very, very much reliant on their mother's rich milk, and they are actually reliant on their milk till over a year. So they are weaned very late compared to other animals out here. Sorry, the Game Drive channel was very busy there. I didn't quite catch the question coming through. I know it was from Terence in Margate, who's recently started watching with his dad and is hoping to come visit Juma in June or July next year. Terence is wondering, are there any plants here that can be used to treat spider bite? There are quite a few, and generally a lot of the plants will have sort of very general purpose, sort of antibacterial or anesthetic effects. So even arum lily leaves would be a good one. Abutulon leaves, it's a small yellow flower and weed. What else would you use? You could use leadwood ash as well. There are quite a few different plants that you can sort of generally use for insect bites, spider bites, general wounds, sores. Quite often, if some of them are mixed together to form a sort of paste and then applied over the wounds. Sorry, the Game Drive comms are really busy this morning to the north of us. Quite a funny question from Italian. Wondering, is Mama Z safe? For those of you who are not sure who Mama Z is the lady who makes sure we stay neat and tidy and that our clothes and dishes get done and clean. And Italians wondering, is Mama Z safe? We saw her on camera yesterday, far from civilization and walking barefoot and unarmed. Mama Z was perfectly safe. You might have had the impression she was far from civilization. She was less than 60 meters from our camp, and she was walking to get cell phone signal so she could make some phone calls. And walking barefoot, that's her choice, and she's probably walked barefoot for most of her life. And she was perfectly safe. We do generally have a good idea where all the animals are, and lions and leopards in particular. And so no, she was completely safe. morning, Marianne from Boston. Marianne would like to know, besides francolins and babblers, what bird in the bush calls the most and makes the most noise? Oh, well, at night, your fiery neck nightjars call incessantly through the night. So they call a lot. And also, let's think. I would say Haida ibis in certain areas. African fish eagle. And those are the ones that make the most noise. There's a lot of birds that call a lot, but they are very, very quiet. And during the summer months, woodlands kingfishers, bee eaters, but again, quiet, it's not very noisy. Good morning, Julia Smith in Houston, Texas, the home of NASA, if I remember correctly, or at least the shuttle launches. Houston, we have a problem. Julia would like to know whether the cameramen are as quiet in camp as they are when they're on the vehicles. Unfortunately not, Julia. They're quite loud when they're in camp. I think they make up for all the time they're quiet on the vehicles by making quite a bit of noise while they're in camp. So quite windy, and we're going to go check around Impala Plains. Possibly Shadow has decided to make an appearance from the west. Unfortunately, I'm still battling with my comms this morning. I'm not quite sure what's wrong with them. I'll have to try and fix them after drive. But I think I heard that Siberia would like to know, with lions and leopards not around, what are the chances of Peter? I think, presuming Peter the pond hippo. Cheetah. Sorry, showing up. Well, probably about the same as if the lions and leopards were here. So, as the cheetah have massive home ranges and they're constantly patrolling. And it's decent cheetah country, not ideal. And the only time cheetah are really stationary in the area is when a female has cubs. And I haven't seen a female here. I've only seen those two males who are constantly looking for ladies. But there's chances as good as it is on a normal day out here. But from my confusion in speaking about Peter, the pan or pond hippo, he was back this morning when I drove past first thing, already fouling up the water. So, while we continue to check through the western regions of Djuma, let's go across to James for an update.
Oh, everybody, we've come onto this clearing with a view out over the Drakensberg Mountains, which have disappeared amongst what are possibly the most gloriously puffy cotton wool clouds that I've seen yet at Djuma. There's a wind blowing and you can see them floating impossibly peacefully off to the north. And I tell you, the atmosphere, while I wanted to try and see an elephant or a buffalo or something large on foot today, the atmosphere here is just so... Andrew's just broken a tree. It's not great for the tree, of course. The atmosphere is just so peaceful and gentle. And I think, people often talk about, if they think about being out here as a complete adventure, which it is. It's absolutely the most wonderful adventure you can have. But it also has these moments where everything just feels right with the world, where there is a sense of peace that just seeps up through the earth and through your whole being and into those magnificent clouds as they float past. I'm possibly talking nonsense now, so I'll stop. Let's go towards a tree here. And there is a beautiful, in fact, Louise has just said very nicely, she said a sense of stillness and belonging. Very nice, Louise, that's most eloquent of you. There's a tree over here that's got some bark hanging from it. And I thought it was a kill for one stage. I thought maybe there was a carcass lurking there and there may be a leopard around, but it is just some bark that's come out, and it's an enormous marula tree. Beautiful marula tree, and we've come up onto the ridge crest on the far east of the reserve, and there's a huge, huge marula tree singing in the wind as it blows through the treetops. What a spectacular tree. It's really great. Carolyn in Chicago, while Andrew shows you this beautiful marula tree, you want to know why the animals don't alarm call at us when we're walking. They do. Impala not so much, because they normally see us pretty early. If you walk past a herd of wildebeest, they will absolutely alarm call at you. They'll go kudu not so much, they'll normally move away, they'll watch carefully. Nyala also not so much. Impala, if impala think you're hiding from them, then they will alarm call, and I've definitely had impala alarm calling at me, but if they don't feel like they're being stalked, then they don't. They'll just move away slowly. And I had an amazing sighting with Tebbs the other day on Tebbs' first walk. We got to within sort of 10 meters or 30 feet of a herd of nyala, and we just sat, much like we did with those mongoose, and just let them get used to us, and eventually they just didn't worry about us, because as long as they can see us, then they don't alarm call and they don't recognize us. While they are certainly wary of us, because they are used to us not sort of presenting a threat to them, they start to relax around us, which is just so special. Right, on we go. And of course, on a quiet morning like this, it is always important to remind yourself that behind every bush could be a leopard, behind every large tree could be a 6-ton elephant bull. And certainly where there are buffalo tracks in abundance, which there are all over here, one must be constantly on the lookout. This is just a very lovely morning as we go up through this ridge crest area. Here is a buffalo track, exactly what I was talking about. So they are around, and there's a kudu track here too. A very rounded track. And I mean, there are some people who spend hours of every day trying to decipher the difference between kudu tracks and nyala tracks and impala tracks, and once you can do it, it's not that hard. It is, to me, a slightly tedious process, just the identification part of it. There's another lovely woodland kingfisher with his back to us, sitting perfectly on a horizontal branch there. Can you see him, Andrew?
Yeah.
And you can hear some woodland kingfishers calling. I don't think it's the one you're looking at now. And there we go, the halcyon blue. You can feel the breeze. The smell is one of sort of faint dust and freshness. Cool breeze blowing through the woodland. Ah, it's marvelous. Come on, Andrew. Let us forge ahead fearlessly. See if we can't find some form of mammal other than the dwarf mongoose. Now, Tom, you're in Dallas and you ask a very valid question. I mean, we've shown you lots of termite mounds. Most of them don't seem to have any termites in them. And you want to know if there are any around that actually have termites in them. Tom, there are. I will try and find you one. But often those big mounds are semi-dormant. So the termites might be living in a piece of it. and not in another piece of it. And it's also much more easy to find termite mounds that are active when there's some moisture around, when there's some rain. That's when they tend to do a lot more building. When it's dry like this, they tend to go sort of inside the mound, and they don't do a great deal of building at all. And so it's not as obvious when the termite mounds are active. There's one over here that I think is active, and I'll show you why I think it's active. Careful, Andrew. Andrew's being very arty today, you'll notice. He's walking some distance from me as we walk along, which does of course mean that he will walk into the... Oh, there's a buffalo. There's a buffalo. Come over here, Andrew. There are a few of them. There. Get behind the tree here, if you can. We're now going to be very quiet. I knew I could see the buffalo tracks, and there they are. Got to be so aware. While Andrew shows you those ones, I'm just going to look behind us to make sure that there aren't any behind us. And we'll now check the wind. Sorry, Andrew. The wind is good for us. They won't be able to smell us. They would see us from there if they turned around and looked carefully, but they're just wandering like buffalo bulls do through the bush. You got them there?
Yeah. I almost feel like they're walking like zombies.
They do look like zombies.
It's quite scary.
Yes, I don't think they are zombies, Andrew. No, they're unlikely to try and undead us. Okay, let's go to the termite mound over here, and we'll just see if we can get a better view from the top of the mound that I wanted to show you. And of course, they're often not alone, so we walk carefully to make sure that there aren't any lurking behind where we want to walk. They're still zombieing through there. Of course, it's very easy for me to walk in a dainty fashion, but for Andrew it's a lot more difficult because he's carrying so much more weight. They're just wandering off down there. We'll get a quick look from the termite mound here. No, I can't even see them anymore. Sorry, they've gone through. Is this cheetah cutline, or was it just a game path? I think it's cheetah cutline. Let's go down onto the road, we'll probably get a better view. So this termite mound also isn't active. I will try and find you an active. There they go. This is the cheetah cutline. This is our eastern boundary. And there the buffalo there, or one of them is, walking down into Torchwood. You'd best watch out because that seems to be where most of the lions are hiding these days. Marvellous. Well, I'm glad we got at least one big game sighting on foot. Not a particularly spectacular one. But now, you see, in a vehicle where we would follow them and, you know, have another look. You don't really want to do that on foot because they are moving away. I mean, we could follow them for a little while and see what they do, but you just don't want them to become aware of you, especially buffalo bulls. So I don't think we'll follow them. Let's just see further up the road there. There aren't any more. Yeah. I might be tempted to follow them if they weren't walking onto Torchwood, but I don't think I'm going to now because they're going east. GJ, you want to know how far we'll walk from the vehicles knowing that we have to go back to the vehicles? GJ, as far as we want to. I mean, the other day we didn't even take a vehicle. Andrew and I walked straight out of camp to Buffalo's Hook Dam and back, and that to me is the best. It means you don't have to get in the car at all. We're not far from the car now. It's probably about 500 meters, maybe half a mile up the road there. Let's head back to Brent, see what he's got to show you. Buffalo going into Torchwood, and we're going to head slowly north along the road here. See you shortly.
So not much happening around the Impala Plains or Zoe's area. So we're going to have a quick squiz past the Gallagher waterhole. Richard on Twitter would like to know, do we have any spitting cobras here? It's the most common of our cobra species. We get spitting cobras and snouted cobras. Snouted cobra used to be called an Egyptian cobra. So yes, we do. And I am busy trying to catch one at my house to remove it. It keeps escaping into the roof. Removed a puff adder on Christmas Day from the house, and we also found a black-headed centipede eater in the swimming pool, which we rescued. Adara in Ohio says it was so much fun watching Andrew and I have a foot race the other day. She's wondering, who do I think would win between myself and James? I'm not sure, Dara. I think it might be quite close if we had to race. I couldn't say for certain who would win. We're going to go have a look at the Gallagher waterhole, see if there's anything there. More than likely just the resident Duggar boys might be around. Although it has been quite chilly this morning, so they might not have got moving, got those old bones creaking towards the waterholes just yet. Okay, well, speaking of buffalo, let's go have a look at James and some buffalo. I wonder who'd win that foot race. Hopefully.
Right, everybody, there is a buffalo coming through here, and we were not in a great position, so we kind of moved out of the way, and he's following the footsteps of his friends. I was trying to get a view of him again. The wind is not good for us here. It is, the buffalo's over there, it's blowing up from here, and so where we were on the cut line, he would have smelt us. And so we've come off the road to try and get a bit of cover here. And a buffalo, of course, is renowned as being the most dangerous animal to see on foot, which, if you irritate it sufficiently, yes, I suppose it could be. But the whole thing out here is that if we treat the animals with respect, if we understand how they're going to behave, should be okay. So I'm just going to stand here and wait for a while. I suspect quite strongly that this buffalo has smelt us and stopped moving. In fact, I'm going to leave Andrew right where he is, and I'm just going to go and do a little bit of a recce. There he comes. You can see it now. He's watching us there. No, he's not watching us. He's just coming through. Can you see him there? He's coming through the bush there. I'm just going to check the wind. Sorry, I keep hitting Andrew with the... Now, the wind is okay for us. It's sort of blowing across him as opposed to towards him. Okay. He's probably about... There he comes. Now you'll see him. He's about 100 meters from us. There, you'll see him now. You got him, Andrew?
Yeah.
And that's a buffalo bull. Now, if he looks at us, we're going to move away quite quickly. Not because he's likely to come charging, but because we don't want him to come looking for us. Now, what a buffalo bull will do, if it sees you and you then hide from it, it will come and look for you, because that's precisely how a predator would react. So if it sees you, it's best to just let it see that you're moving away. So let's watch him carefully. He's walking along the same line as the other two went. He doesn't know we're here yet. Look at him go. Isn't he a magnificent fellow? Andrew's zombie buffalo. And Andrew, you stay right there. I'm just going to watch where he goes. He could turn down here. I don't think he's going to. I'm pretty sure that he's moving towards the others. That's him belching. I don't know if you heard that. He went bleh. No, he's gone. He hasn't seen us. Now, I suspect quite strongly that there are a few more of them following from where he is. Isn't that wonderful? The best way to view an animal on foot is such that it does not know you're there. Now, you may well have seen the old TV show where you can walk out of the bush here and wave your arms at it, and it will probably 9 times out of 10 it'll run away from you. You can get a great close visual, and then you have the buffalo staring at you and snorting and then running and turning away from you. You can stand there like a great man with your big stick and shout at the animal. That's just not what it's about. That, for me, belongs in the archives of wildlife filmmaking. This is how, in 2015, we want to be interacting with the wild. We want to try and do it. We don't always succeed. As sensitively as possible. It's still massively exciting, but this is how it really is. So let's carry on. Beautiful buffalo sighting. Thank you, Andrew. We're going to stick to the cover now. The road is just over there, the cut line, and we're just going to stick along with the cover here, so if there are others coming along here, they won't see us either. Rava, you want to know how it is that Andrew is manages not to step in dung while we're walking along here. Andrew, how do you manage not to step in dung?
I think I have before.
Andrew, as I suspected, says he probably does step in dung. I step in plenty of dung, and I'm not even operating the camera. Buffalo dung mainly. What you don't want to stand in, of course, is lion dung, because lion dung is the most evil smelling thing in the whole world. That's a bit thick in there for you, Andrew. Now, Ron, you're in Florida and you want to know what drew me to being a guide. Ron, it's a very long and involved story that involves a woman in a very painful, or shall we say damaging relationship. We all have those. I was going to be a guitarist in Johannesburg. That was going to be my career path. And this lady I was with at the time, when I was about 22 years old, she said, she had the character of a honey badger. I don't know if you know what a honey badger is. They're quite, they're stubborn and fairly aggressive, rapacious. And she said, no, we're going to the bush. So I said, okay. And I thought that I would probably entertain people in the boma at night by playing the guitar. And she said, no, you'll be a ranger. So I said, oh, okay, I'll be a ranger. And that's what I became. And interestingly, she didn't last in the bush, because, of course, when you are guiding the world's high-paying tourists, you need to have some kind of social grace. Which she does have. She does have social grace, but she's also not particularly tolerant of some let's leave it there. And so she didn't last as a guide, and I just carried on, and I found that the world into which I became immersed became this astonishing sort of it was a constant state of learning I was in, which I found very exciting. And I've always said that I would live in a beautiful area. I'm not I wasn't as a child interested in what bird that was, what tree this is, what insect that is. I've always just wanted to live in a beautiful area, and until I moved out here, of course, I'd only lived in Johannesburg and in cities, and this was a great way to live in a beautiful area and a way to make a living doing that. So that, Ron, is basically the short story of how I became a guide. There's a lizard there, but I'm not sure you'll be able to see it, Andrew. It's running from us. No. Gail, a very, very good question that you ask, a valid one, and one that you're going to be pleased with the answer of, I think. You are coming to South Africa and you want to know if your visit here is going to make some kind of social contribution to the people of Africa. Absolutely it is. I don't know where you're going, but the Kruger National Park, and this is where the great hunting versus photographic tourism debate falls squarely into the realms of the photographic tourist. The Kruger Park, the lodges on the outside of the Kruger National Park, employ a huge number of people. Without tourists coming out here like you, Gail, those people wouldn't have jobs. Each person in this area that has a job supports between 6 and 10 people on one salary. So it really is an amazing thing, and that only happens with this photographic tourism. And so the money that you spend to come out here will unquestionably make a difference to the local people of this area, and that goes for anybody who comes out here on the safari. Okay, let's head back to Brent, see what he's found, and we'll keep walking gently up this eastern cut line. See you shortly.
So we've just come across a little breeding herd of elephants. They sound like they're quite spread out through the bush. We've got this little female who's shaking her head at us, and an adult just to the left, and looks like another one behind, but they sound like there's quite a few more around through the bush. Really enjoying the cool weather. So Deborah in Florida noticed that it's very light at 5 a.m. She's wondering, is this because we don't have daylight savings time? Deborah, I'm not sure. We don't have daylight savings time because our day doesn't vary as much as yours during the winter and summer. And during summer it is light very early. It's light from 4:30 in the morning. Yes, you're very brave and very scary, and we're going to run away. Not. So it varies. Our day and night varies probably only about 2 hours. Oh, there we go, more elephants off to the left here screaming. So we don't need daylight savings. We have long enough days during the summer and winter that it's not a problem. A big adult female there. I'm not going any closer to these ellies. In the strong wind, they're not very relaxed. So we'll move forward slightly to try to get a better view, but we're not going to go too close to them. When you do have these strong winds, a lot of the animals tend to be a little bit jumpy. As you can see, not 100% relaxed in this wind. As I said, we're not going to push our luck. We'll just stay a little bit further away and watch them calmly go about their business. No need to annoy them or harass them. Lucy in Indiana is wondering, will the elephants eat dry grass? Not completely dry grass. There's very little nutrients. The cellulose is dead, but they will eat grass that might look dry to us, but might still have some greenery in it. So initially, I thought it was quite a small herd. Now that I'm listening to all the branches breaking around us, it sounds like this is actually quite a bigger herd. There's some more on the left. Hopefully we'll be able to get a better view of them, not just the backside. They win. Good. Shell in Detroit says she loves it when the young Ellies try to act tough with me. It always makes her giggle. They'll be doing a lot of browsing and pushing over trees during a drought, which I did mention is not bad for the bush. It really opens it up. And we go through wet cycles and dry cycles, and the wet cycles, the trees dominate, and the dry cycles, they get pushed down and it makes space for grass to grow. And grass holds more animals than trees do. It's a bit more nutrients rich. And also more species feed off it. So right on top of the crest, between two valleys, feeding on various different tree species, buffalo thorns, combretums. So very relaxing, sitting with this herd of elephants. As I said, we're not going to try to get close to them in this wind. It could upset them, and I'd much rather them be nice and relaxed and carry on their daily business. Oh, there's a little stretch. This guy's having a nice little rub against the marula tree. Let's try and maybe go back a bit. So Matt in New York would like to know, what does our day consist of when we're not out on safari? Is it clerical stuff, or do we go out into the park? Matt, it varies day to day. Quite often it's a lot of, at the time now that we're on a skeleton crew, a lot of maintenance, trying to fix comms boxes and earpieces and vehicles and maintenance is a never-ending issue. And then a little bit of sort of admin stuff, depending on what department you're in. Your admin and maintenance varies. And then, because we work very unusual hours compared to most people, and we start work at 4 a.m. and we'll generally be finished the main part of our job by 8 a.m. and we'll have some breakfast normally in the meeting to figure out what we got to do during the day, and then try to get the majority of that done by 12 or even earlier if possible, as fast as possible. And then we will generally relax or have a little nap sometime during the day, read, catch up on other work outside of this, and then head out again for the evening safari. Leaning against that marula tree. Look at him, he's getting onto his knees. What are you doing? On the knees. I can't see whether it's trying to pull something out with a tusk or just playing. Oh, it looks like it was just playing. Well, on that note, let's go across to James quickly, and we'll be back with these Eddies in a few minutes.
Right, we are here just to say goodbye to you, everybody. We're walking now. I'm trying a new walking technique because Andrew says that my short legs mean that I walk with very short steps, and that makes it difficult for him to keep the camera smooth while I'm walking. So I'm attempting a new technique. How's it working, Andrew? He's ambivalent at this stage. Anyway, apparently Louise says it looks a lot smoother, so I shall walk like this for the remainder of the segment. We are heading back towards the vehicle. We are not far from it, about 300 feet or so, and or 300 of these sort of giant feet that I'm doing now, and we're going to leave you in the company of Brent Leo Smith. A big thank you to Andrew for his efforts today. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Louise, flying in the final control. She's on the vocals, back with us. Jerry on the keys. Brent Leo Smith, of course, the inimitable, irascible, and highly enthusiastic with Tebs. And mostly, thanks for talking to me while we were on our walk. I do so enjoy talking to you. I think people are sometimes a little nervous to ask questions when we're on foot, and it's very nice to talk to you. Okay, without further ado, let's head back to the elephants and Brent Leo Smith. I will see you later this afternoon. Probably not walking like this. Bye-bye.
We're still sitting here with this wonderful herd of ellies, and they were a bit nervous when we came, so we stopped quite far away and just sat quietly and talked, and they've got used to the sound of the voice, and some of them have started to come a bit closer. This little female here feeding on whatever she can. Looks like she's removing little bits of grass that still hold some nutrients, as well as little creepers. Eric in Virginia Beach is wondering whether African elephants have ever been used for work like Asian elephants. The only record I know of them being regularly used for work was the forest variation of the African elephant in the Congo basin rainforests, but that was quite a long time ago when there was he's going to walk out in front of us, this female, when there was a large kingdom named was called by the Europeans the King of Congo, but it was the Luango Kingdom that stretched from modern-day Angola all the way through to modern-day Gabon, and it was only along the coast of that kingdom, didn't penetrate very far inland, and they used to use elephants to transport logs and things, but not sure how successfully, and there's very little sort of information about it. So as we move into the final minutes of this morning's sunrise safari, it's been wonderful having you guys with us, and so lovely to end with a herd of ellies. And it's quite a big herd. I can still hear quite a few in the distance, breaking branches and feeding away. And already, after the chilly start, the sun is beating down. I think it's going to be an absolute scorcher. Hopefully our catch luck changes and some of these tracks we've been following off our Traverse area decide to grace us with their presence. So for those of you who watch the Djuma Dam cams, I think there's a very, very good chance that this herd of elephants is going to pop up there. Hopefully they won't be too upset with Pete the pond hippo, who has fouled the water immensely. But let's look at these ellies for the last few seconds.